Good morning, and thank you for joining the Washtenaw County Roads Commission's virtual design information meeting about the roundabout project that's planned at the intersection of Miller Road and Zeeb Road in Scioto Township.
Excuse me, Emma. Sorry, I don't mean it. Excuse me, Emma. I don't mean to interrupt, but the meeting is being recorded. Is still viewed on your project. Just in that line.
Thank you. Okay, so my name is Emma, and I am the Washtenaw County Road Commission's Communications Associate, and I'll be the meeting host today along with our project managers. This morning, I'm going to go over some housekeeping items before turning it over to staff for a presentation about the project, and then we'll have some time to open up the meeting for your questions. Joining me in today's meeting is Project Manager Michelle Ford and the Director of Engineering, Matt McDonnell. The meeting audio and video is being recorded, and it will be posted to the project webpage on wcroads.org in the next day or two. After the presentation, you will be asked to virtually raise your hand during the Q&A. I will provide instruction at that time on how to do this from either your computer, the Zoom app, or your touch-tone phone. The chat feature for this meeting is turned on. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to ask it in the chat and we will address it during the Q&A. You can find the chat window at the bottom of your screen. And the floor is yours, Michelle.
All right, Emma, thank you so much. So I'm Michelle Ford, the project manager for this project. We're here to talk about the Miller Road at Zeeb Road Roundabout project. So what we have is, this is an aerial of the area, and we're planning a little roundabout that will be built in 2024. Next slide. So right now what we have is a two-way stop intersection. Miller Road stops at the intersection. There's a flasher signal. It's red for them. It's yellow for the people on Zeeb Road. And if you have driven out there, you can see that there's a little bit of a sight distance issue, and it can be a challenge for drivers to pull out onto Zeeb Road at times. Next. So we've gotten the question of why are we improving this particular intersection? Well, it does have a history of crashes. MDOT did a local safety initiative study in 2018 of our entire county, and this was one of the intersections that was identified them as having history of crashes. And as a result of that, we also applied for a federal safety grant, and that was awarded to us. So this is going to be a safety project to help hopefully make things a little better out there. When we were doing that, we went and analyzed the intersection to see if it warranted a traffic signal. So we don't just put traffic signals up anywhere. There are certain requirements that have to be met. We call these warrants, and there are several of them, and you have to meet more than one of these. And when we went through all of the analysis, we did see that a traffic signal was warranted at the intersection. So Emma? So when we put in that safety application, we asked for a traffic signal. We were planning a box span, which means that there would be the strings all the way around. You'd see the signals. We were going to put left turn lanes on all the approaches with a dedicated left turn signal. So why aren't we doing that? Well, once we got into the design of it, there were some challenges with the road alignment. We would have had to lower the intersection. There's some vertical curves there. There's some sight distance issues. And in the end, it was going to require design waivers, which we never like to do design waivers, but especially on a safety project, it didn't make sense to us. It was going to cause quite substantial impacts to the neighboring properties. So we decided to change to a roundabout. So why a roundabout? We contacted MDOT, and they were agreeable to it because for safety, roundabouts are one of the tools that we use. It does Statistically, as you look back on the history of them, there's about a 90% reduction in serious injury or fatal crashes. It does reduce, in general, the total crashes. But once again, the important thing is if there are crashes, they tend to be less serious crashes. It helps to lower speeds in the area. We can get improved traffic capacity with it, and it does offer the opportunity for aesthetic enhancements. So one of the things that we look at when we're looking at safety is points of conflict. And what we mean by that is that's the areas where cars have an opportunity to connect with each other. They can do that when they're merging, when you're diverging, when you're crossing an intersection. So a standard cross intersection, we have about 32 points of contact, points of conflict. But on a modern roundabout, that decreases to only 8 conflicting points. And as you can see, there are no crossing conflicts. And the crossing conflicts are where you tend to have the more serious accidents that possibly could involve injury or fatality. So this is a picture of one of the roundabouts that we've put in the area in the last few years. And it's just to show you, remind people who are driving that entering traffic yields. It goes in a counterclockwise movement. And then we use the islands to control speed. We call those splitter islands, the ones that are on the approach there. And then we also have a central island. This is a map of the roundabouts that we have installed in the last several years in Washtenaw County. The orange ones there are the ones that we at the Road Commission have jurisdiction over and have put in. The ones in blue are MDOT roundabouts, the Michigan Department of Transportation. And then there's green ones there. The city of Ann Arbor has also been putting in several roundabouts. And as you can see that we have quite a few of them in Washtenaw County. The residents are becoming pretty used to them, and they've been functioning very nicely for us. If you want more general information on roundabouts, we do have a resource page on our website. So you can go ahead and look at that. There's some public education things, driving tips, some information on the safety studies and stuff that have been done. So back to our project, the funding for this, our largest source of funding is that safety grant that we were applied for and were given. We also have some of our federal surface transportation program. Those are our yearly federal funds that we receive. And we're also using some of our local Michigan transportation funds. Those are the funds that we get every year that are generated through license and registration fees, as well as the fuel tax. And the construction cost estimate for this particular project is $1.2 million. And that's pretty much in line with how much these smaller one-lane roundabouts cost for us. All right, so here is a rendering of the design that we are moving forward with. So you can see Miller Road and Zeeb Road, and we're shifting it just very slightly to the west. We have a couple reasons for that. It works really well with our moving traffic, the trucks and things. We also have on the east side there a pathway that was put in very recently by Scioto Township. We didn't want to disturb that too much. We do have to realign it a little bit to get it safely through the roundabout, but otherwise we're keeping that pretty much intact. We also have a whole bunch of utilities on that side that caused us to shift slightly to the west. There will be those splitter islands that we talked about. We like to put in our red decorative concrete, and that's to help a visual cue for drivers to help channel them a little bit better and understand the direction that they're supposed to be going. There'll be curb and gutter along those islands. And as you enter and exit the roundabout for a while, We're working with DTE Community Lighting to put some street lighting up. We have not received that design yet. They're doing their photometric analysis right now. In general, we tend to end up with about a street light in each quadrant. And then this one with the crosswalk will have probably a little bit of advanced lighting to make sure that any pedestrians or bicyclists can be seen. There will be a few impacts to the surrounding properties, but we did our very best to keep those to as minimal as possible. Next. These are just a couple examples of ones that we have put in the last few years. This is over to the east of our project, Miller Road at Wagner Road. It also is a single lane roundabout. Those have been working really well for us. You have a single lane that comes out, that enters in, and then a single lane exiting. Then Liberty at Zeeb, we put in last year. That also is a single lane roundabout. This particular one, we used concrete. The one at Miller and Zeeb will be asphalt, similar to the one at Miller and Wagner. But this is just another example of one of our roundabouts. During construction, the intersection will be closed to all through traffic and we'll post a detour. We'll maintain access for any area residents at all times, and that pathway will be maintained, but it'll be with temporary materials. So they'll, Michigan Department of Transportation has some provisions of the requirements for that temporary pathway, and the contractor will follow those to make sure that any bicyclists or pedestrians can get around the construction in a safe manner. So our next steps are finishing up the design. We're pretty much finished with the design. We're just finalizing our bid documents and finishing up our right-of-way acquisition, where then we will submit it to MDOT for a bid letting. That's when they'll open up the bids. Right now, we don't have an exact date for that. It depends on when we get those bid documents turned in, but we anticipate probably early next year that will be in a bid letting. Then the contractor will be awarded. We'll have a construction information meeting once we get that contractor and have a better idea of what the schedule is. So right now, the construction will be in summer of 2024. Like I said, I don't have exact dates. That'll be once we have the contractor and get their schedule, we'll know that. In general, we probably will wait until after school is out for the summer and then start it at that time. So if you want to find out more, Emma, you want to tell them how they can do that?
Yeah, so let me take a minute to navigate to our website to show you guys how to get information about the project and sign yourself up for subscriptions. Okay, so right now I've got Google open and I have our web address, wcroads.org up here in the search bar. Going to enter it. And this is what our website looks like at first glance. Then you're going to want to hover your mouse over the roadwork and construction tab, and you're going to have a drop-down menu. You're going to want to click on current projects. Here you'll be able to see a map of all the construction work that we have going on in our county. You'll be able to see all the different projects that we have and the information relating to each project. It's organized alphabetically, so here's Miller and Zeeb. You can click on that. You'll be able to see a map of where this project is taking place, what township it's in, the funding information, and the impact on traffic. You also have Michelle's contact information here, so her email and phone number is both provided, and in these helpful links will be information regarding like the detour and other things like that. So as you can see, we've got the virtual public meeting that was posted here on the website, so any advisories or project updates will be posted to this webpage. You can also click on this orange button that says subscribe to project updates. This will bring you to a form that you're able to fill out your personal information and sign up for different types of notifications, including project updates for this project specifically, road advisories, and anything that you might be interested in. Okay, now we're going to open the presentation up for questions. Just give me 1 second here. So if you're viewing the meeting on your computer, first make sure to click the join audio button. You can then raise your hand by clicking the reactions or the participants button at the bottom of your screen, and then the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen. If you dialed in from the meeting from your touch tone phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. As the meeting host, I will unmute participants with raised hands one at a time. I will announce your username or last 4 digits of your phone number when it's your turn to speak. We are happy to answer as many questions as possible. Just please be respectful of each other's time. If your questions are answered before we get to you, you can lower your hand by dialing the lower hand button or dialing *9. Okay, I do see that we have one question in the chat. Joanne says, how many crashes have there been at that intersection? In the last 40 years I've lived in the area, I don't recall ever seeing one.
So I do not have an exact number of crashes. I'm sorry, I can't answer that right off the top of my head. That is information I believe that you can get from the Michigan State Police. Matt, do you have anything else on that?
Yeah, we also have the application we prepared for the safety project grant. If you're interested, we could give you that. All you would need to do is submit a Freedom of Information Act request, and we can provide that. But there were
Awesome.
a number of crashes. That's why it did qualify, and we did receive the funding.
Okay, great. I also see D. Armstrong has his hand raised, so I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself so you're able to ask your question.
Yeah, just in your experience, how long do these projects typically take from start to finish?
So it varies a little bit by project. Typically for a roundabout, we ask the public to plan for up to 12 weeks. Once again, once we have a contractor on board and we get their schedule, I'll have a better idea of that. So when we do the construction information meeting, we'll be able to narrow that down a little bit better for you. But in general, brace yourself for up to 3 months.
Okay, and as Assistant Fire Chief for Scioto Township, I can confirm that there have been a number of accidents at that intersection.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. And just to give an example, Liberty and Zeeb, we closed that intersection shortly after school let out mid-June, and we were able to get it back open before school started again. So it just depends.
Yeah.
That is the goal. Absolutely. Minimize impacts.
And just to clarify that we do allow, of course, emergency vehicle access throughout the construction.
Okay. I also see in the chat that David Olson has said, what is the expected total downtime for the construction from closed to open, which you guys just answered.
Okay.
Okay, are there any other questions that people would like to put in the chat or ask themselves? I'll give you guys a few more seconds. Janet Reynolds, I see that you have your hand raised, so I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you very much. And Michelle, thank you for the information that you provided. It was helpful to hear from you. Just a couple of quick questions and to see if I noted this correctly. The MDOT study that was done that showed this intersection to be problematic, that was done in 2018, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So in 2023, that may look a little bit different. We've had COVID, we've had, I think one of the things that came out of COVID was a lot of people are working differently now, and more people working remotely. Are there plans before summer of next year to update that data to see if this intersection is still as problematic as MDOT determined in 2018? So my question is, are there plans to update the data?
At this time, no, we're planning to move forward with the project. And, you know, we have received the safety funding, and the project will be moving forward with the data that we have.
Okay, from 5 years ago, and next year it'll be 6 years, correct?
So I can add to that.
Yeah.
Ultimately, we do track our traffic counts. We have a program that we take counts every year. You're absolutely right. During COVID, we saw our volumes fall, but what we're seeing is them returning to pre-COVID levels. So we do have traffic counts out there on various roads. I don't know if we've recounted Zeeb in recent history. We certainly can get information for that, but ultimately Michelle is correct. We see this still as a very valid need, and we are moving forward with the project.
Okay, thank you, Brent, for that clarification. So I in some information received through FOIA request, I noted that a great percentage of the crashes that were reported were identified as people going over the speed limit. So not just over 45 miles an hour, but over 50 miles an hour. So what, if any, consideration has been made? I'm thinking, of course, and just, you know, just putting it out there. I think everybody understands this as being the property owner that has a property most greatly impacted by this project. And at the same time, I'm very interested in public safety. That's a given, but I'm interested also in limiting impact on anyone's property that would be affected, and all the, you know, the wildlife and the trees and everything else that goes along with it. What, if any, consideration has been given to reducing speed limits and placing stop signs at Miller and Zeeb going east and west? On Zeeb Road going north and south?
So we certainly look at that. I'm not sure that it warranted a four-way stop, but the roundabout, one of the best features of the roundabout is that the speed at which cars are going through the intersection will be greatly reduced. That is one of the benefits. It's a traffic calming measure, and with the speed reduction and the angle of the crashes, if they were to occur, which they don't, a much lesser degree than a normal intersection, as Michelle pointed out earlier in the presentation, that we feel the roundabout is the best solution to not only address the speed, but the safety of the intersection. And obviously you also have to balance congestion. So the level of service that the intersection provides to these two primary roadways.
Okay, thank you. And I guess just one other logistical question. I, of course, am noting that this meeting was scheduled for 11 o'clock on a weekday when a number of people are working and may not be able to break away to get on this meeting. I know quite a few people who wanted to attend, but because of their work schedules, were not able to. I understand that this is recorded, but when it's recorded, people don't have the chance to engage like this in dialogue. I'm wondering if you're planning to repeat this sort of public meeting opportunity?
We are going to be having, as Michelle mentioned, a construction information meeting as well. So it will be another public meeting. We try to do it around lunchtime so that people can participate if they have the opportunity. Otherwise, certainly can watch the video. We'll post it on the project website that Emma had showed. And then obviously we are always open to questions, concerns, discussion about the project. Both Michelle or I can make ourselves available if folks are interested.
Thank you. And would this next meeting, which according to what I wrote down then wouldn't be until next year, 2024, would it be in person?
We have talked about that. We've found we've gotten the greatest participation by doing virtual meetings. You can see a number of people on this meeting. So that's certainly something we can consider, but we have been doing them virtually.
All right, thank you.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. I see that Joanne has their hand raised again. I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Yes, this is Joan. And I was curious about just the layout of the project. So it's shifted north, it looks like, as Janet was mentioning, onto some personal properties. I'm curious about that triangular property that no one lives on to the south, between all the, Dexter Ann Arbor, Zeeb, Miller. Why isn't the roundabout shifted more in that direction, maybe helping the surrounding property owners maintain more of their land? I'm curious about that.
Sure. We looked at, it's mainly shifted to the west, as Michelle indicated. We look at the geometry of the intersection. It is definitely intentional when we're looking at the approaches. As you approach the intersection, the geometry of the roadways is done in such a manner to have those drivers slow down. So we've got curves and whatnot, and the angle of the intersection, obviously this is a skewed intersection as well. So it is not the normal 90-degree T or cross intersection. It is definitely skewed. Miller Road through the Zeeb Road intersection, and Zeeb Road is also on a curve. So this was a tricky geometry, but we worked to optimize all and balance the impacts to property owners and to have the safest geometry for this roundabout. And this is what we came up with.
Great. I'm not seeing any more questions within the chat, so I'll give you guys another chance to either send your questions into the chat or raise your hand so I can unmute you and you can ask your question. Okay. It doesn't seem like we have any more questions. No one's raising their hand and I don't see anything popping up in the chat. So just as a reminder, here is Michelle's contact information. You can visit our website at any time and subscribe for those project updates. Just to reiterate that this meeting was recorded and it will be posted to the project webpage and sent out through email notifications. So I would highly recommend signing up for them. And thank you for joining our virtual design information meeting today for the intersection of Miller Road at Zeeb Road. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks.